Welcome to the Clearview Township Committee of Adjustment. I will call the meeting to order. It's now a minute shy of 3 p.m. I'll start with a land acknowledgement. I would like to begin our meeting by recognizing the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples of Canada as traditional stewards and caretakers of the land. We acknowledge that Clearview Township is located within the boundaries of Treaty 18, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Neotin, Teonatani, Wendat, and is the home of many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, as part of an intricate nationhood that reaches across Turtle Island. At this time of truth and reconciliation, we welcome the opportunity to work together towards new understandings and renew relationships and ask for guidance in all we do. We have minutes from last month. Are there any questions, queries from the members of the committee about the minutes last month? Seeing none, can I get a motion to accept the minutes of last month? All in favor? Carried. Any declaration of pecuniary interest on the 5 files before us today? Seeing none, we can move forward. So the Committee of Adjustment today will consider several minor variances and a couple consent applications scheduled under public hearings. The Planning Act requires that a public hearing be held before the Committee of Adjustment decides whether or not to pass a consent or a minor variance. The public hearing serves two purposes. First, to present to us, the Committee of Adjustment, and to you, the public, the details and background of the application. And second, to receive comments from the public and agencies before a decision is made. For each application, the Secretary-Treasurer will summarize the proposal and correspondence on file. Planning Division staff, over to my right, your left, will provide any other information that is relevant to the application. From there, the applicant, whoever's file it may be, can take the center stage and the microphone over there and are provided the opportunity to make a presentation followed by questions or presentations from the public, either in favor or against the proposal. Committee members will then have the opportunity to question the applicant, the Secretary-Treasurer, the planner, or anyone else giving a presentation. The application will then be considered by the committee and we will take a vote. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Notice for this statutory public hearing for these applications was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13. Notice for these applications was posted on the subject properties on or before January 29th, 2025, which was at least 14 days prior to the hearing. Notice was delivered to property owners within 60 meters of the subject properties and circulated by email to the persons, departments, and agencies likely to have an interest in the applications. Notice was also posted to the Clearview Township website. Included with each notice was a legal description of the property and a description of the proposed changes.
All right. So I will ask, because this is streamed live on YouTube and we are famous people in the world, so the rest of the township can see what we do. When the applicant, if the applicant needs to speak, can you please make sure that you take the microphone so that it picks you up? All right. Screaming right along. Minor variance file 24-A20, the Morissette file, sir.
Yes, this is a minor variance application for 2353 County Road 124. The purpose of this application is to permit the renovation and conversion of an approximately 218 square meter portion of an existing detached accessory building to contain an accessory dwelling unit. Comments were received by the Public Works Department, Building Department, Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, and neighbors. And the staff recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Clearview hereby approves minor variance application 24A20 with conditions on the basis that it meets the 4 tests in accordance with the Planning Act. And the condition is that the applicant must receive approval from the NVCA as applicable.
Thank you very much. Does the planning staff have anything to add other than what we already currently have before us on this file?
Thank you, Chair. My name is Nick Ainley. I'm a planner here at the Township of Clearview. I think we're doing a little something different than we had done before. So we have prepared a presentation, a brief presentation to give an overview to committee members as well as the public regarding the application. So you can see it. So I'll briefly run through it for everyone here. So like I said, I was the planner assigned to minor variance file 24A20 regarding lands located at 2353 County Road 124. And zoning and official plan policy, it's addressed in later slides, so I'll skip forward. So in terms of the current uses, the subject land supporting existing residential or single attached dwelling, as well as agricultural uses on the subject lands. The purpose and effect of the current application, so the applicant is proposing to renovate a 218 square meter portion of the existing 526 square meter portion of the attached accessory building located on the property. And that would be to convert it to an accessory dwelling unit. The applicant seeks, in order to do so, the applicant seeks release from the following sections of the zoning bylaw. So the first one was section 2.5.1A, which is the maximum habitable living space of the accessory dwelling unit from 111 square meters to 218 square meters, a variance of 107 square meters. Section 2.5.2.A, which is the maximum distance that attached accessory dwelling unit from a primary dwelling can be from 50 meters to 161 meters, which is a variance of 111 meters, as well as section 3.1.2Q, which is the maximum gross floor area of an accessory dwelling unit in an AG zone from 111 square meters to 218 square meters, again, a variance of 107 square meters. Sections 3.1.2Q, the maximum distance of an attached accessory dwelling unit in an AG zone can be located from the primary dwelling, which was the maximum of 50 meters to 161 meters, variance of 111 meters. And finally, section 3.1.2 again, for the attached accessory dwelling unit shall have a total gross area of no greater than 50% of that of the primary dwelling principal or residence on the lot, which would be 50% to 58%, so 8% increase. The only additional thing I wanted to note on that was that although there are 5 separate variances being requested, it's noted that the general provisions, which would be the 2.51 and 2.52, do kind of reflect and mirror the same policies that are under the zone specific under sections 3.12. So while there are 5, they're reinforced by one another. Next slide, please. So here's just an aerial image of the subject land. It's a bit challenging to see from this distance, but obviously the property is outlined in black. The subject land or the existing residential dwelling and portion of the dwelling to be converted are located on the western portion of the site in proximity to the frontage and County Road 124. Next slide, please. So this is the official plan policy map for it. So you can see that the area, again, the subject lands are outlined in the black outline. The tan area would be the agricultural designation with a kind of small Greenlands natural hazard land designation flowing through the rear or the kind of bisecting the front midsection of the property. It's noted that the building subject to the current application is located outside the Greenlands natural hazard land area. Next slide. This is a concept plan or kind of the proposed of this current location of the existing detached accessory structure, as well as the existing single attached structure and some other structures on the property. So on kind of the top northwest portion of the site, that's where the existing dwelling is. Just south of that's an existing barn structure. And then on the bottom there to the bottom or southeast is the existing structure. So it's that building that's associated with the proposed application. Next slide. This is an elevation of the existing detached accessory building on the property with the second floor subject to the current variance. Next slide. This is the existing floor plans for the site. So this is the bottom floor is on the left, kind of the garage component, with the second floor being on the right there, which is subject to the current application. Next slide, please. Here's a exterior photo of the detached accessory building, how it currently stands today, as well as a kind of a photo of this confirming that the notice was posted on the property. Next slide. And as indicated by the Secretary Treasurer, be it resolved, in terms of recommendation, be it resolved that Committee of Adjustment, Township of Clearview hereby approves minor variance 24A20 pertaining to lands located at 2353 County Road 124. On the basis that it meets the 4 tests in accordance with the Planning Act, subject to the following conditions. and that the applicant receive approval from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority as applicable. I know that that condition was added because we did receive comment from the Conservation Authority indicating they have no objection, but because they are within the regulatory areas, they do require a permit from the applicant. And that's all I have today. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a representative from the Morissette application? If you'd take the podium, sir. Do you have anything to add that we don't already have in front of us to assist us in making a decision?
Well, good afternoon, Chairman Rand and council members or committee members and staff. My name is Bill Plewis. I'm here representing Mr. Morissette. He's away for the time being. I think I really want to just explain that the reason that for this purpose is to not to increase or to gain income off the property. It's to facilitate having his children come up with his grandchildren. The old farmhouse just is not large enough when they all show up anymore. His family is growing, he's got a lot more grandchildren. So the purpose of doing this here is basically just to allow for his children and grandchildren to stay in the building. It's not an income property. It's not to be used for anything other than just for his kids. That's it. We looked at it and we just wanted to make sure you knew that. The property, by making this variance and getting approval, is not detrimental to anybody else around because the building's so far away from any other buildings that it's not impinging on anybody's natural daylight on their properties. The building's already existing. So there's no problems with that. As far as public health, there's issues. There's already a septic system on the property by that structure that was designed to accommodate future bathrooms should he ever gone this far. So the septic system is already installed and it's designed to accommodate future use of this building, which we're hoping to get today. Other than that, I mean, I think we've worked alongside. I've talked with Planner Ainley there a number of times, and I think we worked back and forth enough times that I think we got it to where we are hoping it's going to be acceptable. And I don't really have any more. I mean, Nick's pretty much nailed everything down on paper for you. So I'm just hoping that we can get this through.
All right. Is there any questions from the committee members to either the planning staff or the representative for the file? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill, maybe you can help me out. In 2010, I believe this is when this was built.
Correct.
What was it applied for? As like an accessory dwelling?
It was built as an accessory building.
Okay.
And that was it. It was just right now it's all, the entire building is basically done exactly the way he wanted it. It was all structurally, it was done as all storage or storage rooms on the second floor.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing will be changed. When he designed this building, he designed it hoping and sometime in the future, should the need arise, that he could come back and apply for variance to make it habitable space for his kids. So
Okay.
it's, I don't think he has 8 cars to put underneath it, but there is spots.
It shows that.
It shows that, but that's for the architectural drawings, but I don't know if anybody even stores anything in it. It's so far away from the house. I think he stores his cars up at his house. So.
Okay, so maybe we bring Nick in on this. Have there been consideration given to the fact that the addition of the rooms, et cetera, I believe you might have mentioned a bar and a bathroom, would that require a septic upgrade?
Through the chair. So yes, the application has, as a part of the application process, it was circulated to the building department. So a permit is required, and through that permit, the building department will advise whether upgrades are required. I'd imagine that a permit would be to confirm the septic system is appropriate. If not, they would have to apply for a permit to construct that system to accommodate the proposed washing facilities.
Okay, and then one more question, Nick. In 2010, were there any restrictions imposed on the accessory building?
Not that I'm aware of. It would have been applied for at the time under the revisions at the time. So staff are not aware of it was approved and constructed in accordance with the building plans at that time. And currently the applicants come forward for the current renovation, and that's where it was triggered, the plan review and requirement for the variance.
So when I saw this and the distance away from the primary dwelling, I thought it was quite a distance. And then I actually walked the property and there's nowhere else for this house. So, and it was quite an exercise too. So, yeah, so that's all I need. So thank you.
And just to clarify, we are well aware that we need to get a building permit for this. In my past life, I was in the building department in Collingwood, so Mr. Morissette knows procedure. This one was the first step, and then after this here, when if we are successful, we know enough that we have to apply for the building permit. And there will be some work that will need to be done, but that'll all be reflected on the drawings, and yeah, we'll go that route.
Yeah, no, they're great drawings. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the site sketch and the site sketch and the floor plan. If I presume these are to scale, and we're talking about an increase of 8% on the building we're proposing compared to the main dwelling now. Is that only taking in part of the floor area for the existing structure? Not because by this map, it looks like the building's bigger than the house. So just want to clarify that point.
Through your worship, or through chair. Yes, so it is only the second floor. So it is only the component of the detached accessory building to be converted to an accessory dwelling unit. The other portions will remain as accessory to the primary dwelling on the property. So of the 526 square meter building, it's only the 218, which is to be converted to a detached accessory dwelling unit.
You're good? After walking the property, you confirmed that anyone usually puts people that far away from the main dwelling are little people. So thank you for confirming that to me. I do not have any further questions. Is there any deliberation amongst the committee members about, or do we have a motion to accept this file as written by the township? You'll accept it? Put the motion forward? Excellent. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you for your
You have
time.
a 20-day appeal period, at which point in time our secretary treasurer will be your best friend to get
Yes.
you through the process.
Great. Thank
With-
you very much. Thank you for your time.
Back to you, sir. Next file, consent file 25B01.
Yes, so this is a consent application for 5538 and 5546, concession 6. And the purpose of this application is to sever a portion of land from 5538 to be added to 5546. We will hear this application alongside with a minor variance application just for 5546, concession 6. And the purpose of that is to establish the actual lot area of that property, or that parcel, which is different from the approved minimum lot area from a zoning bylaw amendment 2484. The error was detected when we were processing consent application 25B01. And so following the staff presentation, applicant presentation, the applicants have a presentation, and questions, we will first move to the application for consent. And after that decision is made, we will move to the application for minor variance. We received comments from the Public Works Department, Building Department, NVCA, and the County of Simcoe. And for this application, notice was posted on the township website, mailed to neighbors, and posted to the site. However, the sign posted on the site was blown down by the wind sometime between February 3rd and February 5th. Township staff are satisfied that notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act. And the staff recommendation for consent application 25B01 is that the Committee of Adjustment approve consent application 25B01 with conditions. The conditions that the owner meet all the requirements, financial and otherwise, of the municipality, including servicing bylaw charges, that the applicant provide a description of the land which is registered under the requirements of the Registry Act or Land Titles Act, that any mortgage be discharged from any lands being severed from 5538, that the parcel of land to be severed from concession or 5538 is conveyed into the same name as the owner of the abutting land, and that the owner successfully applies to the municipality for the minor variance that we will hear. And that minor variance, the staff recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment approves the minor variance with conditions on the basis that it meets the 4 tests in accordance with the Planning Act. And the condition is that the owner successfully applies to the municipality for a boundary adjustment to sever the land, which is the consent that we are hearing first.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone from the planning department to add to that? What we already have before us?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I do have a brief presentation, and I guess I will go through the consent and the minor variance presentations together, will I? Okay, cool. So today we're here to consider file 25 BL1 for the Allen lands, and it is a consent application. The subject lands are 5538 and 5546, concession 6 in Sunnydale. The zoning on the lands are agricultural exception AG-27, and the official plan designates the land agricultural. The current land use of the lands is farmland, and that is with cash crop and livestock. The purpose and the effect of the consent is that the applicant is proposing to sever a portion of the land from 5538 concession 6 Sunnydale Street to be added to 5546 concession 6 Sunnydale. The applicant is seeking a boundary adjustment to include the following. The proposed severed lands will be approximately 138 meters of frontage and approximately 6.46 hectares with a well and a decommissioned barn. And this land will be added, so this portion of land will be added to increase the size of 5546 concession 6 Sunnydale. The receiving parcel, 5546, the current size of that is 107, approximately 107 meters of frontage, and the area currently is 5.64 hectares with the house, accessory buildings, and a septic bed. The leftover land or retained parcel, which will be 5538 concession 6 Sunnydale, will be approximately 100.84 meters of frontage and approximately 2.5 hectares of vacant land. The effect of the application will be to facilitate a boundary adjustment and consolidation of all the existing buildings, wells, and septic bed on one parcel while preserving 2 lots. So the boundary adjustment in the end will result in 5538 concession 6, the retained parcel being approximately 100 meters of frontage and having a lot area of approximately 2.5 hectares, and that the property 5546 concession 6, the receiving parcel, having a new frontage of 245 meters and a lot area of approximately 12.1 hectares. The next slide just shows an air photo of the 2 properties. So essentially what will be happening is we'll just be kind of switching the areas between them. Most of the properties or most of the buildings and structures are all located on 5546. Aside from a small shed that it's located on 5538. And in the end, all buildings and structures will all be located on 5546. This just gives the planning policy, so the lands are designated agricultural. And then the site plan. This just shows the way that the lands will be conveyed. So the severed parcel is that middle parcel with the red arrows on it. That land is being taken from 5538 and will be added to 5546. The site photos just show Switzer Street or concession 6 looking to the west. So that's looking at 5546. And then looking to the east, which is looking at 5538. It does show, we did see, there was a photo taken of the sign that was posted. And as mentioned, it actually wasn't there when we went out, but we are aware that there was some heavy winds in the last few weeks. So This does show looking north at the existing farm cluster of buildings. And then just surrounding area, again, looking east, west, and then east again at the new parcel. As mentioned, the recommendation is to approve the lot addition, and it will recommend a conditional approval on the following conditions, which is that the owner meet all the requirements, financial and otherwise, of the municipality. That the applicant provide a description of the land which may be registered under the requirements of the Registry Act or land titles, that any mortgage on the property be discharged from the lands being severed, that being 5538, and that the solicitor provide an undertaking in writing that this condition is fulfilled. That the parcel to be severed from 5538 is conveyed into the same name as the owner of the budding land to the west, that being 5546. And that it be all merged to the satisfaction of the township, and that the owner successfully applies to the municipality for a minor variance to reduce the minimum lot area for the property at 5546. So I might just launch right into the minor variance. A lot of this will be repetitive. So this minor variance is associated with the newly created parcel 5546. And again, it is dealing with the newly created parcel that we just spoke of. In this case, the purpose is to look at the zoning section 3.1.5 agricultural exception AG-27. And what we're doing is reducing the required minimum lot area of 12.4 hectares. And what's proposed will be 12.1 hectares. It's a variance of 0.3 hectares. And the effect is to establish that the actual lot area 5546 concession 6 will be different from the minimum lot area that was approved in a zoning bylaw 2484. And as mentioned, that error was detected when we were processing the application for the consent. So just showing similar area or air photo of the subject lands. The lands are designated agricultural. This does show a new site plan, where the larger lands at 446 or 5546 are shown there as the lighter green. That is the area where the minor variance is being requested. And similar site photos with the sign, structures. And again, as mentioned, the recommendation is to approve with the following condition, that the owner successfully applies to the municipality for the boundary adjustment that was spoken of previously. And that concludes my presentation. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Allen and Mr. Allen, if you would, do you have anything to add to this file that we don't already have before us?
Hello, committee. My name is Ray Booty Warman. I work on behalf of Mr. Allen at Innovative Planning Solutions, and I do have a presentation prepared, but as Ms. Roslin very efficiently and very greatly did all of the kind of groundwork for me, I will try and speed through this so I don't repeat any information. So if you could go to the next slide. The site statistics, the total land holdings are 14.6 hectares. The frontage is 347 meters long, concession 6 Sunnydale or Switzer Street. And the lands are currently used for agricultural purposes and used by Mr. Allen. There are residential and ancillary buildings located on there. Slide. Here we have the surrounding lands. As you can note, to the north, west, and south mainly contain of agricultural and environmental protection lands. We do abut the built boundary and residential areas to the east there, if you can kind of see in that pie shape area. Looks like someone took a bite out of it. Next slide. As mentioned before, we are in an agricultural designation for the land use and in AG 27, so agriculture with special exceptions within the zoning bylaw, as per zoning bylaw 2484. Sorry. So some context, again, a zoning application was made in August 2024, in which we held a public meeting on October 2024, where the zoning bylaw application was then approved in December 2024, and we shortly made the consent application for the lot line adjustment. During that review of the lot line adjustment, as mentioned, there was an error in the plans for the zoning bylaw, so a minor variance application was submitted to correct this error, and that brings us to today. Next slide. Quickly going through the consent application. Next slide. So here you can kind of see a side by side of the current land holdings on the left and the proposed, and hopefully by the end of the day, the resulting land holdings. You can kind of see that the lot line has moved closer to the west. Next slide. At both parcels comply with the zoning bylaw given the minor variance approval. The receiving parcel will have a lot area of 12.1 hectares, along with a frontage of 245 along concession 6, Sunnydale. And the severed parcel will have 2.5 hectares of the lot area and a frontage of about 100 meters or 100.84 meters to be exact. Slide. The justification is Mr. Allen just wants to move that lot line to consolidate all of the private services on the parcel with the ancillary and residential buildings. If you can kind of see the cluster of buildings, forgive me that it's small, closer to the west portion of the lot. Currently that lot line bisects the private services away from the residential buildings. So we want to just consolidate them all into one parcel, which would result in 5546 section 6. Additionally, this would also create an efficient lot traffic for Mr. Allen and his agricultural purposes. That the graphic at the bottom highlights the soil characteristics, which is 2W, but that kind of blue triangle in that corner there, it's very difficult for Mr. Allen to farm that portion, so he tends to not do that based on his farm equipment and the soil conditions of that area. It tends to be really wet and rocky. So we want to kind of isolate that area. Slide. So conclusion, we believe that the lot line adjustment is of good planning and a professional planning opinion that it's great. The private services will be on the same lot. It will very much help Mr. Allen in terms of any future, no future application, but just future work. And the consent application will create a desirable lot traffic for Mr. Allen. And I would like to reiterate that no new lot is created. There's still 2 lots that are resulting, and we are simply just moving that lot line closer to the west side. Next, we have the minor variance application. We can go to the next slide. So the minor variance application, as Ms. Rosalind Workman stated, was for a reduction in the lot size from 12.4 to 12.1. There was an error in the plans where it was read from 12.04 as 12.4 on our end, so we seek to change that. This will not result in any change in the actual lot area itself, just in the documents. Next slide. So in addition to that, a report was submitted to indicate how the minor variance would apply to the 4 tests, and we believe that in planning opinion that it is minor in nature, desirable for the proposed development for that lot boundary adjustment, is consistent with the goals of the official plan as it continues to be agricultural land, and is compliant with the intent of the zoning bylaw as it doesn't propose any change there. And that is my presentation.
Perfect. I'm quite content that you think that I agree with the township as well on your conclusions. Makes our job easy.
Oh,
It really does.
That's what we hope.
Is there
Everything's consistent.
any questions from committee members to anyone? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question would be for Rosalind, and then it would lead to another question in regards to your answer. You state that prior to any livestock operation being established on the 5538 concession 6, an MDS2 calculation will need to be completed and separation achieved. Separation from a building that's close by, and can that lot satisfy that separation? depending on what's proposed.
Thank you through the chair. Yes, so at this point, it's a vacant piece of land.
Yes.
So as if, let's say there's a residential house proposed,
Okay.
we will require an MDS calculation to be undertaken. And because there isn't anything proposed right now, we didn't have that study done. We did have the MDS done on the other property, right?
So I was thinking more along the line, if, for example, there's another livestock operation put there, would there be sufficient space to separate that?
Well, I mean, the first one complies, but I would say hopefully. And
Okay.
if not, then they're gonna have to do a minor variance for that, right?
Okay, so then that segues into my next question. So we're dealing with the railway here, and that may have some effect because you're requiring a 30-meter setback from railway corridor. Who actually controls that now?
The county of Simcoe.
So, I mean, we all know it's going to be a trail. So what, would that not make that setback less?
So actually, the county of Simcoe official plan puts it in a transportation corridor.
Right.
And therefore it is being protected in the event that there is a rail put back onto that piece of land. And I believe when the consultants were doing their building envelope on there, like there's plenty of space in terms of like the setback. So a house location isn't going to be impacted by that.
So if, for example, Mr. Allen applied for a house or another barn, then they'll work with them to allow him to use that space to make it work.
Yeah, there won't be an issue in terms of that setback. They'll be able to make, I mean, I guess depending on like like if there is a conflict, then there's always the option of the minor variance, but
Okay. So I think given that this is agricultural property and Clearview is an agricultural township, that it's important to support this, and I'll support this application. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Through the chair, I don't know who's going to want to answer this, but kind of along the same lines as Gord, I'm thinking because it's only a 2.5 acre parcel, and I presume that's the minimum you've showed here to still keep the AG 27 zoning. I'm wondering if we should reduce that retained parcel to like half a hectare or whatever and keep the rest with 5546 and keep it under the agricultural designation. So comments on that.
thank you through the chair. If we reduce it below a 2 hectare, it's no longer considered an agricultural parcel and therefore would not be considered something permitted. So that was why the size of 2.5 is being applied for, because it is still considered viable for agricultural purposes. And so if we went down to 1 hectare, it's actually more considered a residential use, and we wouldn't have been able to support the lot addition. And I don't know if my colleague has anything more to add on that.
In addition to that, the 2.5 parcel or 2.5 acre parcel that we have moved forward with has been designed in that kind of matter because of the frontage. So the frontage for the AG zone is 100 meters, and we comply with that, and we didn't want to do that, undergo an additional, not application, but undergo an additional kind of work to get that 100-meter reduced as well.
You're satisfied, sir? All right, if there are no more questions to anyone, is there someone on the committee willing to put that motion forward as written by the township? Yes, sir. All in favor? Carried.
Through the chair,
That's the consent file.
I do need a seconder also,
You need a seconder?
Mhm.
Wow,
procedurally.
there's 5 of us here.
I know.
All right, just checking. So on the consent file, then I'll seconder.
Great. Thank you.
There you go. On the minor variance file before us, do we have a motion to accept that file as written? A seconder. All in favor? Carried. Are you satisfied, sir?
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
All right. You guys have a great day. We will scream right along with file number 3, minor variance file 25-A02, sir.
Yes, this is a minor variance application for 3399 County Road 42. And the purpose of this application is to allow for the severance of 2.21 hectare lots as approved in 2023 by consent by this committee. And this is retaining one 21 hectare agricultural lot. We received comments from the Public Works Department, Building Department, and the NVCA. And the staff recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves minor variance application 25A02 with conditions on the basis that it meets the 4 tests in accordance with the Planning Act. And the conditions from staff is that notwithstanding section 2.4.4 and section 2.1.3.1.2a, the retained lot shall otherwise comply with all other applicable provisions of the zoning bylaw. Second, that the conditions of consents 23B01 and 23B02 be fulfilled and certificates issued. And 3, that the retained lot be substantially and proportionally in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone from the planning department who can add to what we have before us? Danielle?
Yes, thank you. So this is minor variance application 25A02 at 3399 County Road 42. So the zoning is residential hamlet and agricultural. Official plan designation is future development and agricultural, and the current use of the property is agricultural and residential. So as Colin mentioned, the purpose of this application, it was a condition of consent for 23B01 and B02 to recognize that the retained parcel will not meet the minimum lot area for the agricultural zone. So there's 3 things up there. It's 2 sections, 244. Alteration of an existing lot. So the existing lot being 21.551 hectares, and the proposed lot after the 2 lots are severed off is 21 hectares. And section 312A, the minimum lot area in an agricultural zone required to be 35 hectares. The proposed is 21 hectares, noting that it's already a deficient lot in size. Next slide. Here we have the aerial photo of the property. So I've pointed out to 2 things. So the existing dwelling on the property that will remain with the retained lot in the agricultural zone, and then just to kind of point to where those 2 proposed lots are to be located. Here we have the planning policy, so you can see the agricultural zone and designation, and then the residential hamlet future development area. The site plan that was used for the consent application, so you have the 2 proposed lots and then the frontage of the retained lot. It's not the entire retained lot because it's a big long lot, but just to see the frontage there. Slide. Photos going south and north on County Road 42, the notice sign being posted. And then it's hard to see. So there was like stakes out for the severed lots. So the photo on the left, so I kind of put photos together to almost create a panorama with separate photos. But so the severed lots in the left just point to where those 2 stakes are to create those lots. And then the photo on the right from the road shows the dwelling on the retained lot and the existing driveway that goes up there to those the house there. Again, recommendation would be for approval. No specific conditions I really need to point out, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Just for my own personal clarity, the consent that we voted on and accepted in 23 with your conditions and whatnot, in fulfilling those conditions, we have found this problem?
this variance is one of the conditions that has to be cleared for those consents
Okay.
to go through. So there, she's going through clearing conditions, one of them being applying for the variance, to make sure that that retained lot meets the minimum or goes through the variance process to allow it.
Thank you for clarifying
So
that for me.
it's a check mark.
Is there a representative for this file here? Yes, ma'am. Come on up to the microphone. Do you have anything to add to what we have already before us to assist us in making this decision?
Not really. Um, Danielle has explained it very well. I am not very experienced on this side of the things, but lately I have to say big thank you to the township staff. They have been so helpful in clearing all the, not in clearing, but in explaining me how to work with the conditions and stuff. Even though this was approved quite a bit, like 2 years ago, but life happened and other things happened. I kind of was not able to focus on this, I should say. And I'm nervous right now. So all the other conditions are almost met with County of Simcoe, including road widening and other conditions. And the only thing is that today I think we are here, not I think, I know we are here just to, because the land parcel is going to be less than minimum requirement for the agriculture. So I request if you gentlemen and ladies and everybody can just approve that and we can go ahead with the lot severances. That will be great and thank you very much.
Perfect. Are there any questions for the planning staff or the young lady at the podium? Seeing none. Do we have a motion to accept the motion as written by township staff? A seconder? You have them both, sir? All in favor? Carried. We have made it easier to move forward with your consent, completion of your consent file.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
No problem. You have a great day. All right, last but not least, minor variance file 24-A118, good sir.
Yes, this is a minor variance application for 221 Cherry Street. And the purpose of this application is to allow the construction of a detached accessory building to be used for storage on the property. This application was deferred from the December committee hearing. We received comments from the Public Works Department, Building Department, NVCA, and from neighbors. And staff recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves minor variance application 24A18 with conditions on the basis that it meets the 4 tests in accordance with the Planning Act. And Danielle has 8 conditions here, that the detached accessory building shall otherwise comply with all other provisions of the zoning bylaw, that the detached accessory building be substantially and proportionally in conformity with the dimensions as set out in the application and sketches, that the detached building shall not be used for human habitation, commercial purposes, or for a home business, that prior to issuing a building permit, an engineered lot grading and drainage plan be submitted to the satisfaction of the township, that the appropriate entrance permit be submitted and approved to the township, that the existing woodshed be moved to meet the required 1.2 meter setback prior to issuing a building permit, that no water connection is to be installed until such time that the moratorium on water usage is lifted in Stayner, and that an Ontario land surveyor verify by pinning the foundation wall and verifying it in writing by way of survey prior to the pouring of the footing, or if no footing, the foundation, to make sure that it is no closer than 1.2 meters from the interior side lot line. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone from the planning department to add to what we already have before us? Danielle.
Thank you. So minor variance 24A18 at 221 Cherry Street. The zoning is residential low density, official plan designation is residential, and the current use is residential. So the purpose of the application is to construct a detached accessory building for personal storage purposes. There are two reliefs being requested. One being the maximum height of an accessory building from 4.5 meters to 5.2 meters, which is a variance of 0.7 meters. And maximum gross floor area for all accessory buildings. So when the original notice went out back in December, it was just for this new structure that was going up. When we went out on site, we noticed that there was a woodshed. Despite being small, it still counts towards with the way that the section is worded. It's all accessory buildings. It's not just per accessory building does the requirement apply to. So in the original one, we sought to just remove it. However, with the recirculation, we included that in the maximum gross floor area. As well, with the original circulation, there was the error in the variance height. So that was rectified in the next circulation. So we have the aerial photo here of the property in the area of Cherry Street and Superior Street. The planning policy being residential in Stainer. So the site plan here, you can see the proposed structure at the back of the property and then the woodshed, which will be moved, I guess taking out all the wood and moving it to meet that 1.2 meter setback that's required for it. Next slide. Elevation drawings to show the height of the variance for the proposed structure. So some site photos east. I guess I didn't look west, so I missed that one. Didn't take that photo. And then the notice sign that was posted. So the existing house from the front and from the back, basically kind of looking at the back of the house from where the proposed structure kind of would be. The right photo there just shows the woodshed that's been added. And then a couple different photos of the location for the proposed structure. So it's going kind of in the rear of the property. In the photo on the left, can see the neighbor's garage as well. So keeping those uses somewhat together on the in the area. The owner does have several boats, cars, things like that, which is the purpose of the variance, is to locate those in a structure. Next slide. And as Colin said, there's several conditions here, mainly just to address some of the concerns raised through comments from the neighbors in discussion with the owner. So one being that the detached accessory building is not allowed to be used for commercial purposes. That's indicated already in the zoning bylaw. However, just reiterating it as a condition that that's not a permitted use. Engineered lock grading and drainage plan, I believe, was requested by Public Works, but also a common practice just to ensure if a building of over 100 square feet, really make sure that you know where the water's going. It's not going onto the neighboring properties. Ensuring that there's an entrance permit for that driveway. The requirement for that existing shed to be moved to meet that 1.2 meter setback, and that's to be done prior to the issuance of the building permit of the larger structure. So it will have to be moved before permits for the new structure actually get approved. And then just the verifying of the pinning of the structure to make sure that it does meet that minimum setback. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Danielle. I have one question for you. Those 8 conditions, was there any change to the ones that we're looking at today than the ones we looked at when we deferred this application originally?
The only change would be the existing woodshed. Originally, I requested for it to be removed because it wouldn't have been able to go out through the circulation because it was too late. But now that we did the recirculation, I just included that in the overall size request.
Thank you very much. Is there a representative, Mr. Phillips, Mrs. Phillips, somebody from the Phillips world? Excellent. Please take the microphone.
Thank you. Is it on?
Do you have anything to add that we don't already have before us in this wonderful presentation of file?
Nothing to add. Happy to clarify any questions or answer any questions.
All right.
The woodshed was built, again, not really, it's under the permit size. It has no sides to the structure. It's just to keep firewood dry for a wood stove that I do have inside the house, which has been there long time. So I did not know that that was required. So when it was deferred, we added that to the application so that I didn't have to remove it because it was quite costly. Again, didn't know it had to be so far away from the property line, understand. Yeah, that's it.
All right.
Would like to be able to store the boats in the garage, clean up the yard, but be able to work on the boat and save storage fees in the winter, but that's about it.
All right. First, is there any questions from the committee members to the applicant? Yes, sir.
Through the chairman. So you mentioned about storage capability. So you've obviously looked into that. So that's not something that you want to entertain?
No. I believe the reason that the commercial purposes were brought up is because I'm a mechanic.
Right.
And there is some worries that I'll be working out of said structure. I have put in writing that I understand that it's not one of the allowable uses for it. Being a mechanic and a business owner for a couple of years, I realize that zoning is quite hard to find for that commercial purpose, which I do have currently with the commercial location. Just to kind of help put your mind at ease with that as well, if that helps. But no, the storage is for my own personal use.
Okay, so would you have any flexibility on the size that you're asking for?
Ideally not. The size I think is quite reasonable just because of the size of the lot. From what I understand, I believe it's a double lot and less than double what the allowable would be. What's interesting is if you connect with footings to the house, then you can go as large as an addition for 4,000 square feet on that lot.
That's right.
The reason I've stopped at the 40-foot mark is because from what I understand in asking the planning department is I'm allowed to go up to 40 feet either direction on a slab. So it saves me money on having to pour 4-foot down footings and digging, etc. So all this would be on a concrete slab.
Yeah.
An engineered concrete slab.
So I understand that, but we're dealing with rules here that you're almost double what the size is that's allowable. So that's what your neighbors are complaining about. So I'm just asking you if there's any flexibility on the size, just for my purposes.
I mean, the boat and trailer are about 30 feet long.
But you don't leave them hooked up.
Pardon?
You don't leave them hooked up.
No, the boat trailer is about 30 feet long. So it allows me room to back it in.
Right.
Close the door and be able to walk around the entire structure.
With your truck hooked on it?
No, that would be over 55 feet long.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
No, I understand that there's some conflict with neighbors about this as well, but fortunately, that's why we have these meetings, I guess.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant? All right.
And the height. Oh, height. Why do you need that much height from there for that?
10-foot door. Again, fit the boats, the storage, just for that purpose. I did find out if I do scissor rafters, then I can keep it down to that height as opposed to other rafters, which I guess are a bit steeper. I haven't put that much work into it because I'd like to make sure that it's approved before I start creating drawings and spending money in that regard. But
Okay, thank you.
no worries.
All right. Yes, sir.
Thank you through the chair. Sorry.
No. Now you
All
are.
right. Just look short. Thank you to the chair. Just a question about cladding.
But what, sorry?
About cladding for the building. So your intent is to put steel on, is that the idea?
Oh, for the cladding
Exterior?
in the exterior?
Yeah.
No, to match the house, ideally.
You match those?
Yeah. Keep everything looking the same, keep the property value up. I don't want it to look like a steel structure. I would like to put steel roofing on it because it does end up being cheaper than shingles. There is currently shingles on the house, and they were replaced prior to me purchasing the house. When they're done, I would put steel on the house as well. So everything would match.
Right, so the siding, you would match.
I
it to
believe
the
it's a
house.
light gray aluminum siding that I have on my house right now.
Yep,
Yeah, so that's what I would put on the side of the
All right.
proposed building.
thank you.
All right, you may sit down
Thank you.
before I move on. Is there anyone here with opposing or supporting comments? Yes, sir. Come on up to the microphone.
Hello, I'm kind of new at this. Almost 70 and I never thought I'd be in this position to have to do this sort of thing. So I do have a few things written down. And so our concerns, I'm just not me, the neighbors. Size of the building, looks like an industrial shop more than a garage or whatever. Property values affects me the most. Will my house still be sellable? When I'll show you some pictures of like what it does to my life. It's funny how it affects the fabric of the neighborhood. Like I was raised here, my family, everybody. There's a lot of 40-year neighbors in the neighborhood that have been there a long time. If it goes in, does that allows other properties to do the same? Because they got, well, he did it, so I can do it now, and it'll change the neighborhood that much more. I got here to do the same, changing the dynamics of low density residential into, I'm not sure what designation it would have. The scale of it compared to all the other structures in the neighborhood, it's huge. Well, this is later. And what is a minor variance? Like he's asking for something 73% bigger than what's allowed or whatever by the bylaw. It seems like a lot. And so that was just kind of the highlights I thought of my submission to you guys. I'm sure you read it. So this is kind of what I have here. I don't think it's right to myself, the neighbors, or the town for something like this to be allowed. It's way too big of a shop for the rest of the structures in the neighborhood. And I got some pictures. I didn't know how to go about this. Like in the beginning, like I'm not used to this. This is nerve-wracking. So normally there's a garage on John Street being built, and that's kind of what you think what a garage should look like. But in the past, that's how garages look like, I thought. And this is 40 by 40 by 19 feet high. So his is a little bit smaller, but it's a big building. Then this is another building that got built around the corner from me. And I've been talking to the neighbors, like that even looks like a late industrial, that looks like a garage. Yes. Sorry, I'm nervous. And so like this is a picture, it'll be in my comment later, of how it used to look. And this house behind him has a fence up, but he put a chain link fence to kind of keep the openness of it, not to be so intimidating. And my garden's right there. That's right where the building's going. This is kind of looking at my garden the other way. I know rabbits and stuff, it's a pain in the butt, you know, now. And we kind of had this to scale. That shows his house and the size of the building in my little garage. And like, and all the other buildings around are like that. Like that overtakes, sorry, that overtakes his house. Like, I just don't get it. And then like, I wish I had got that done. This is looking off my back deck. This is where we live. My garage is where I do all my working in the summertime. There'll be a 12-foot wall by 30 feet to the back corner of my garage, plus another 5 feet for the pitch. It's gonna be huge. Like it's gonna be a huge square wall. Like a regular garage. You don't have, like it was only 8-9 feet high, then the pitch of the roof isn't so intimidating, you know what I mean? It's crazy to me. I don't know if you want to see them closer or whatever. Just, it amazes me how big the building is. I've had a little bit more here to say, I don't know, whatever. So I was gonna go to this. This is a notice of hearing, whatever, committee of adjustment. I'm coming. Sorry. I'm coming. So it says here in the thing, the location of the building is to be in the back corner of the lands, and from the road will appear smaller and secondary to the main use of the lands. And I'm saying, well, the garage comes up 1/3 on the one side of his lot, it comes up 50 feet, and his lot's 147. And across the back, it's 79 feet, it comes over 35 feet, almost half. And so to this comment, well, it won't look very small to me when I'm standing right there 10 feet away from it. In the summertime, working on my garage or working on whatever, like, to me, it's crazy. Then B says, the question of minor variance of the application relates to the scale and impact. The request is minor in nature, as the accessory building will remain subordinate and incidental to the primary residence used on the lot, and is not anticipated to have any adverse effect on the neighboring properties. Well, that's just not true. We'll be looking at a wall 12 feet by 30 feet from my deck and 5 feet high. Which is about 20 feet away, because I got my driveway and then my deck. You think that garage that has maybe 8 or 9 foot walls, I've just said to you, it wouldn't be as bad because the pitch of the roof isn't like this big square solid wall. And the roof will be fairly flat. There won't be much pitch to it. And I put in here again in my things, the building is way too huge compared to the surrounding structures. The way our property is made, not back to back, but his back to my middle of ours, has a huge impact to our quality of life, our lives, just 10 feet away. And somebody moves in and wants to change the fabric of the neighborhood. They bought the property knowing what the neighborhood was about. And they knew it. The neighbor, and I know that fabric is living here for a long time, not someone who just moved in. Then I have, maybe there should be more guidelines of what a garage should look like, not just the area and height to keep a garage looking like a garage, which is what the past has always kind of set the norms of what that is. How does one person, if this passes, seem to have more rights than the rest of the neighbors who have been here a long time and understand the fabric? Some have, that's why I showed you that picture of the chain link fence. Some have bought property because of that. Large yards, wide open field, no large intimidating structure compared to the rest of the structures in the neighborhood. And then I just went down. Why does it seem that one person, if it passes, get their way and the rest of the neighbors don't seem to matter? That seems so wrong to me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry.
Oh, that was the end of the letter. All right, sorry.
What's that?
That was the end of what you were reading.
Well, I got my 2 daughters' weddings. I couldn't talk, but this is really important to me. This doesn't seem right. And I said, we're all part of Stainer and we live here, but Stainer is a part of us that have been here a long time and they know what that feel is, whatever. Somebody that just moves in from outside doesn't seem right.
All right. Are you representing all the people
Yeah, I think so. You got some?
and speaking for them? All
I think
right.
so. And then there was a couple more in December, but I guess like we're all almost 70, in our 70s, in their 80s. So then you talk to people, well, that's maybe why it's done in the winter time. So it's hard to talk to people. Like I tried to get and talk to people back in November. And it's hard because
I remember back in December when we deferred it, there was a lot of long
There's a couple
faces having to
here.
drive home in the dead of just before Christmas.
Well, I just think it's way too big of a building for, the feel of a small town neighborhood in Stainer. And like, Jane Street's behind us, and south of Jane Street, that's all open fields. Sunnydale Street, all behind that, that's all open fields. That's all gonna be new houses eventually. And I always thought like the core of a town kind of stayed the same, but it changed in other subdivisions. And I think that's a big plus when you have big lots. And somebody says to me, oh, you got a big lot, you know, what does it matter? But all the lots in the old part of town are big. Like, it's not a good, argument to me. Anyways.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
I will caveat my comments before we proceed, that there are no third-party status at tribunals, right? Everyone in Ontario has a right to be heard, right? And I appreciate all the neighbors' comments and you, sir, representing all the neighbors with their comments. And then, so I say that at the beginning, right? Is there a motion to accept? No. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Just in regards to the comments we've heard, I guess to the applicant through the chair, wondering, is there any wiggle room to do more than the 5-foot setback from the side lot line?
Yes.
Like to move.
Yeah, you gotta go to the microphone.
To move
Otherwise it
over.
So the lot line that the neighbor is concerned about, that's where I've actually put 10 feet. So it's 10 feet off the back line, 5 feet off the side. Again, the reason for the height is so that I can have a traditional looking roof. One of the photos that were shown by a gentleman, it's quite a flat roof. I'd like to avoid a flat roof, especially with the amount of icicles we're having this time of year. Yeah, so I'm 5 feet off of the other lot, which I guess is also partially his lot as well. I mean, I could move it a bit, but that is where the laneway is, so it wouldn't make much sense to have it off the side of the laneway. So I would like to retain to the 5 foot, that lot. Again, for the height, I believe it's 0.7 meters, which is for 3 feet of adjustment. So even if you were within the guidelines, the garage could still be 30 feet wide and maybe 2 feet less than. That's why I believe they've put that it's such a small variance.
Any other questions, sir? Nope. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
My questions would be for Mr. Ayers, if you want to take the mic.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Mr. Ayers, I am from Stainer. I'm proud to be from Stainer. I moved here in 1985, and my family was made very welcome. And I've had 3 children. I now have 3 grandchildren in this area, so it still works. There's such a thing as called progress. Yep. And like it or not, our government supports intensification. Yep. So our town is going to intensify. Our large lots are going to get severed. They're going to get built on because we're running out of the room and they don't want you to build on our agricultural land. So that's inevitable. So, but I also see all you folks at the Siskins games, out at fundraisers and everything in town. And there's a couple that were here last time that aren't here that I see all the time as well. So I really respect what you're saying, and I have some sympathy. If we were to go to what was allowed here, the 64 square meters, and I'm going to talk imperial because I am a builder, so I know exactly what we're all talking about here. That would equate to about a 23 by 30 shed in an imperial square feet.
3 by 30.
Okay, so that's what he can have minimum.
Yeah.
So if he puts that in the back of his lot, it's not really going to change your situation because it's going to be the height would be 15 feet. It'll be 30 feet long and 23 feet wide. So the reason I asked Mr. Phillips for a compromise is because I wanted him to compromise on the size and the location potentially. I got along with my neighbors because there's always middle ground. So I'm asking you, is there a way that you would compromise on the size and the location that you could live with and your neighbors could live with? Because, sorry to interrupt you. It's not unusual for us to consider applications for buildings that are oversized, and in some cases, and we've approved some of them. If you live over in Quebec Street, where all those massive mansions are going,
Yep.
there's an approved garage there, and they approved the height increase there so that the people in the new houses couldn't look over their backyard and watch them in their hot tub and things. So those are things that we think about. So we appreciate that you have a garden. I'm a gardener. I love gardening as well. But I'm not sure that we can stop the shadow from the south from covering your garden that's to the north of that build.
Well, my biggest concern is it's right next, like, put it in the other side of the lot, then maybe put it to the south side.
So this is where I'm trying to get some communication here going between your neighbors so that we can all leave here and still be friends and maybe have a beer in the street party, you know, that sort of thing. So that's my goal here.
Yeah, well, you're saying 26 by 30 would be by code?
23 by 30 would satisfy, but I'm saying to you that that's not big enough for Mr. Phillips' use. So
So what are you saying?
I'm looking to come somewhere in between that. And like, we don't need to leave here making a decision one way or the other if we can decide, let's do something that satisfies everybody. That's who I am as a person. I see you guys can make this work. What do you think?
Well, I know what you're saying, but I'm saying like, so all the neighbors have to succumb to that one person for that reason?
No, we have to work with our neighbors to get along and compromise sometimes. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, maybe move to the south side or whatever. But he won't do that, I know, because he put his driveway on the opposite side of the house and he had this, you know, whatever.
Okay,
Put it
but
to-
I'm asking you if you're willing to compromise and what would you accept?
Well, I like, if he's gonna do that, I want him to move to the south side of his lot, so it doesn't interrupt my daily life when I'm looking off my deck and I don't see this big, tall, 30-foot by 30-foot by 12-foot high wall. Like, you know, don't put that right in my line of sight that I gotta live with for the rest of my life.
So do you have a proposal where you would have him ask him to move it to that would work and the size that would
I
work?
don't know, it depends on him, he says he needs a driveway, move it to the south side.
Okay. All right, I'm just trying to I'm trying to make this work, but it's not working, so we'll have to make a decision.
I will reiterate that in Ontario, there is no right to a view. So unfortunately, I understand your concerns. I am of the opinion that the status quo is the slowest rate at which anything dies. So if nothing is renewed, then eventually Stainer will die. So new people come in. When I bought my house, I was the youngest in my house. On my street. I am now the second oldest, 12 years later. My beard is a lot grayer, but in a very short period of time, my tiny little community down in New Lowell has changed drastically in 12 years. So I just put that out there as thoughts, right? I've driven through the community, and it's a wonderful part of Stainer. But we've deliberated over these same issues in Creemore and Nottawa, and it gets contentious. And I sympathize with you.
Well, this is something to me is it's a garage, like I understand what you're saying, like they want more density and stuff. Well, that's not gonna happen in my neighborhood, I don't think.
Yeah, it will.
How can it?
And I will remind my committee members, I understand where my committee members are trying to be helpful. The decision before us today is on the building size and the building regulations. Where it goes belongs to the building staff and the planning staff. So it's not in our purview to decide on where it goes today. All we are doing is either granting the oversized rule changes. So after reminding them that.
Well, how is a minor variance 73%? You would think a minor variance is maybe 8-10% bigger or?
I have struggled with the words minor variance, but see those three people over there that the mayor and the township pays? Highly educated people who have reminded me time after time what a minor variance is, what minor is. Given the fact that if he attaches this to his house, he can build it 4 times bigger than what he currently is.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
it, it makes it minor by when you compare it to what he could definitely build
But then it
on the
would-
property.
But then it wouldn't be 10 feet away from my property line.
Agreed, but where it is not our decision. The decision before the Committee of Adjustment is the variance from what is allowed to what is not allowed. Yeah. The planning department writes the conditions, but in essence is whether our decision is not when you build it, how you build it, what it looks like. Yes, sir.
So I get to know what the planning department decides, like, what are they gonna allow then? You're just allowing for the size of whatever. Like, how does that work? Where it's positioned and,
The planning department is constrained by provincial laws and whatnot.
yeah,
And they actually go to school and learn all this. And I respect their educated opinion. Danielle, you want to say something?
Yeah, so I can just add that
Perfect.
when I'm reviewing everything, right, I'm reviewing it based on this site plan, and where it's located, and based on the fact that, you know, it's next to the neighbor's garage and whatnot. So looking at the site, there's a really large tree in the other corner of the property. However, it is along the, I don't know what that's called, the laneway. Um, uh, so, I mean, but that's not where I based all of my conversation, or my report on, is based on where it's located. So whether it was closer to the laneway, I would have written my report differently. However, I also don't see the issue with it being closer to the laneway. But just, I think the fact that there's like a really large old tree there, I think that's probably why it was located where it is on site. So I would like to see it go up where it was put on the site plan.
Thank you, Danielle, for that.
okay,
All right. Do we have a motion to accept the file as written by the township? Yes, sir. A seconder to this wonderful file? No seconder. Do we have an option to adjust the motion as written?
That's a procedural question that I would love some support on, if Rosalind might be able to speak to that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I think you have to go with what has been applied for. And so, I mean, like you could change, for example, if you thought landscaping might be an option, you know, to help with, you know, you could add a condition, let's say. But to actually change.
I wasn't looking at changing it.
Oh, okay.
My change is if you can't say yes, then it's a no. But you still have to make a motion to say you either support the motion as written or you don't. Right?
Yeah. So
Or defer it.
yes, correct. So you'd have to have a motion for that. Yes.
So in the absence of a motion to accept it as written, is there an alternative that is being proposed by committee members? Either you're deferring this or turning it down.
Okay, I'll speak. So with all due respect to everybody, I think there's a compromise to be made here. And I respect and appreciate Danielle's opinion, but I think as a builder that that could be relocated more towards the east, closer to the side of the house where that entrance is. That's just me. And again, I'm looking for a compromise that works for everybody. So that's why I was looking for size and height to come down or maybe less. So I'm not supporting this just because I think there's an alternative here that works for everybody. Thank you.
So
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion then that we can defer this for discussion among the applicant and the planners.
Do we have a seconder to the motion to defer it? And I'll put a date on that of 30 days to our next meeting, right? Like we've already deferred it from December. I would prefer to see a date on this to give them 30 days to come to some consensus. Is there a seconder to deferring it till our next meeting? Seconder? All in favor? All right, deferred it is till our next meeting. Please work with the planning staff. I'm a true believer that you are the king of your castle, and that your land is your land. If you wanted a view, someone should have bought it. But that's just a personal opinion. So I said, that's just a personal opinion. Oh, there's no entitlement to a view over someone else's property in Ontario. So if he tore his house down and put a 10-story building in there and it worked in the bylaws, it changes your neighborhood, doesn't it, sir? For your benefit, sir, I hope he does not change his mind and attaches it to his house. Because if he attaches it to his house, he can build a 60-foot by 60-foot and fill the rest of the property. And then what tiny little building he is proposing currently will seem very tiny to you. Either way, you got 30 days and we will decide this at our next meeting. All right,
Our next meeting will be March 12th.
excellent. You guys come back in a month and we will decide this again. All right. I give you the best of luck in coming up with a compromise that works between the two parties and the planning staff. And I include the planning staff in there because they are key to keeping things within the rules. All right. This concludes the public portion of our meeting. I thank you all for attending, and I'm going to turn my microphone off now.
I'd like to say something. I'm Mrs. Ayers, and I'm a implant to this town. And I know we have to have structure going on. We've been in that house 38 years. And I'm from not here.
I believe we stay online until we close the meeting.
We have a motion for adjournment.
And that means we should have our mics on too. Just
A motion for adjournment? Seconded? All in favor? Carried. Meeting closed at 16:28 hours.